Hi everyone, welcome to Nirja Education. I hope you all are fine. Today I am going to teach you a very first lesson from the supplementary reader. The name of the lesson is A Triumph of Surgery. The Triumph of Surgery is written by James Herriot. Before I start, let's know something about the author. James Herriot was a British writer and as well as a veterinary doctor. So, he is a British famous veterinary doctor and as well as a famous writer, and being a famous veterinary doctor, he uses his vast experiences in writing stories about animals, and as well as his series of stories were released and it became very popular, and he was born on 3rd October 1916 in England. So, now let us know something about the story. Before I start the lesson, let us know the important characters of the story. The first one, Tricky, a small dog, and Mrs. Pamphary, a rich lady and owner of the dog, and next one is Dr. Herriot, the veterinary surgeon. So, these are the three important characters in the story, but the entire story is revolving around Tricky only. So, the protagonist of the story, if I tell, Tricky is the protagonist of the story. Let us see the theme of the story. The entire story revolves around Tricky only and his owner, Mrs. Pamphary. The dog became very lazy and very fat, and it was fed too much. It is rightly called as the pampered child. The dog was treated like a pampered child, and too much of food had been given to Tricky, and that causes it became ill. So, she initially Mrs. Pamphary decided to call doctor, and she took the advice, and doctor advised strictly ask her to follow the food habits. He decided to give a list. These are the food has to be given. Even though the doctor advised, couldn't get any kind of recovery. So, finally, again she decided to call doctor, and doctor thought it won't be good to keep the dog at home. So, he decided to take the dog away from home. That would be the right choice like that. So, the dog was taken away and soon it got recovery. How it came to the recovery, how it became normalcy, that is the thing we are going to see in this story, A Triumph of Surgery. The story begins when Dr. Herriot saw Tricky with his owner Pamphary. He was worried too much because he was shocked at his appearance. The Tricky was very big, very huge in size and very fat with red eyes. His lazy tongue almost hung out from his jaw very lazily. So, by seeing this appearance, doctor thought it should be treated, otherwise it soon became ill, like that he thought. Mrs. Pamphary found that the Tricky had become listless. What is meant by listless? Lack of energy and enthusiasm. So, she thought that the dog must be suffering from malnutrition. So, the special diet should be followed. So, she decided to give malnutrition food as a special diet. So, once she started giving malnutrition and special diet, and in between meals, it is not a food which she is giving specially. This was given only during the time of in between the meals only. Okay, then what kind of foods he started giving? Malt, cod liver oil, and as well as a bowl of Horlicks. These all the things she gave in between the meals. So, obviously the dog became very fat. It doesn't show any kind of interest. It's totally showed a lack of interest, a lack of energy, just sat at the same place without showing any kind of interest to move here and there. This shows Mrs. Pamphary is a fabulous, rich and resourceful lady with a large number of servants, and she is passionately attached with the little dog. So, we can call it as a dog, but here almost she treated as a pampered child. She started showing lot of interest and too much of caring. That leads to the dog behaves very sick. Mark Twain rightly said, too much of anything is bad. Too much of anything is bad, and as well as it is a poison. So, this quote is absolutely suitable in these situations. Why? By seeing the listless behavior of Tricky, she decided to call the doctor. She decided to take the help from the doctor, and doctor advised she is supposed to cut down sweets. It means doctor advised not to give any kind of sweets or cakes to Tricky. By following the diet, that is the only solution to get back the normalcy of Tricky. So, he thought better avoid cakes and sweet, but she did not realize that she started giving overfeeding. Overfeeding is the main cause of Tricky behaves in a very lazy and lethargic manner. So, the pampering, here too much of caring leads to the Tricky fell ill, and the Tricky's only problem is greed for food. It never refuses food. It started eating, almost devouring whatever it has been given. That was the only problem the Tricky faced. So, doctor advised, she did not follow. Obviously, he thought that it should be taken away. It should not be kept at home, otherwise soon it would reach a very bad pathetic situation. Doctor decided to take the dog to it should be hospitalized. The dog should be hospitalized at least fortnightly, then only we could find some recovery. Doctor decided to keep the dog under his observation for 2 weeks, and it was the only way to save the dog. By hearing this, Mrs. Pamphary almost she got fainted. Why? She never got separated from the pampered dog, means the pet dog. She loved the dog very much. So, she thought that it is too difficult for her to be without dog for 2 weeks, but doctor gave a very strict line that the dog supposed to stay or it should be hospitalized. Otherwise, there is no way to save the dog. So, finally, Pamphary also decided to send the dog to the hospital, and the doctor started treating the dog in a different manner. He did not give food for 2 days except water. So, he started giving only water. So, the dog did not show any interest to move here and there, but the 3rd day it started showing some interest by seeing the other dogs. He made a separate box and he made one small bed for the dog, and it was totally treated just like other dogs only, but the dog did not show any sort of interest for the first 2 days. On the very first day at the hospital, Tricky did not show any sort of interest. It was totally motionless, it was lazy and lethargic, and doctor decided to give only water without giving any food. Even other dogs were surged around, and that time also Tricky did not show any interest to play with other dogs. So, other dogs thought it was just like a thing. So, other dogs went away and it was lying on the same place. By seeing this pathetic condition, doctor still he thought to give only water. So, the second day it started showing some interest, and 3rd day it started joining with other dogs when it happened to hear the barking sound. After that, soon the recovery speed started rapidly. It started joining with other dogs and even fighting for the food and even hunting during the night time the rats. So slowly the recovery has been improved. By the time doctor and his friend got many other luxuries from Mrs. Famfari. Mrs. Famfari started sending lot of food material such as eggs, brandy, all these luxurious items had been served. She thought to give all the things to the dog, but obviously he thought we should not give any sort of a food, a luxurious food item which had been given by Mrs. Famfari. That was the cause behind the sickness of the dog. So he thought that this should not be given. It's totally, the cure of the dog is only in the form of a diet. What is the major problem of the dog is purely the greed of food. Whatever it served, it started eating, devouring it. That was the major cause. So when he got all such kind of a luxurious food, he did not give. Even Herriot decided to keep the dog as a permanent guest. Why? Because his partner and he got many other luxurious items such as eggs, brandy, wine, all these things. So he thought that even he made up his mind to keep the dog as a permanent guest at his hospital. But later, by seeing the too much care and pampered dog such as Tricky, an inseparable pair, he thought that decision was obviously not good. And the cure was rapid. By seeing other dogs, even the Tricky started showing lot of interest. Before that, even other dogs, the very first day when other dogs came and surged in front of Tricky, they thought that it is a motionless creature. It was not showing any kind of interest, uninterested thing like that they thought. But soon the recovery was rapid and it started fighting with other dogs in a friendly manner. It started barking with other dogs even. It started eating, fighting and eating. During the time of night, it started hunting rats. So within 14 days, the too much of recovery without any medication. That is very important. Doctor is very much talented person. He just used his wit. He used his brain. The dog's major problem is greed of food. So he decided that not to give any too much of food. Once we started giving too much of food, definitely the dog's recovery will be very, very less. So he targeted in that part and he streamlined his food items and he got the victory also. During these 14 days, Mrs. Famfari made many times call. She called Dr. Herriot and inquired about the health condition of Tricky. And after a complete recovery, doctor decided to call Mrs. Famfari. When she came to the hospital, she found the transformation of the dog. It's a complete transformation. Before that, it was very lazy and it did not show any kind of interest and enthusiasm. Now, it totally transformed. It transformed as a flexible and hard muscle dog. By seeing this, she felt very happy and wholeheartedly she thanked doctor and she told it is really a kind of a triumph of surgery. But doctor did not give any kind of a medication. Without any kind of medical treatment, he has cured. This is really a triumph of surgery. I hope you understood this story. Keep learning and keep on learning. Subscribe our channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you.